Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Excited to chat with you all. I don't actually have a name for my presentation at all. Just going to talk through a few questions that I thought would be interesting for people that are interested in startups and businesses, and tell you the story of Quandri. So we are basically Quandri. And what we do is we have what we call a renewal intelligence platform for insurance brokers and agents across North America. I'll dive into what that is in a little bit, but I will start with myself here. There we go.
What at the laptop?
At the laptop, okay, great. So we work with insurance brokers and we sell to insurance brokers, and so you'll see in all of our pictures we're wearing suits. We don't really work with the tech ecosystem, don't get to wear this every day. But yeah, so I'm Jamieson. I'm co-founder and president of Quandri. I focus on product and engineering, and my background's in engineering. Like I said, we started Quandri while I was in university. And so most of my experience is in Quandri and figuring it out for the first time myself. Which is, I think, a good parallel or kind of difference from the other founders that are up here. So who is Quandri? Quandri was started by myself and my brother Jackson here. And so what we do is, as I said, we're a renewal intelligence platform for insurance brokers. But we started in a much different place than that about 3-4 years ago. So really where we started was I was in university, Jackson had just graduated from university, and we sat down and we said, we want to start a business and we want to work in a business that we have started and be our own bosses. At that time, we thought that meant that we would have more freedom than other people, and we learned the hard way that that's not really the case. But so we basically, there's a romanticization of the startup life, and we said that we wanted that. So we set out to figure out how we could start a business that would be successful, basically. And we started looking at ideas in our own life, ideas that friends had and problems friends had, and started playing around with a lot of things. But the idea for Quandri came out of a problem that we had, or Jackson had actually, in his business at that time. He was running a team that had high volume repetitive processes, kind of an operations team, in these pieces of software that had no APIs, no backends, and so there's no other way to do it besides people doing it. And we said that can't be the case. There has to be a better way to do this. You have a team of 8 people running the same process over and over every day. There's got to be a better way. And so we built software to mimic those people, log in through username and password, pretend to be that person, and automate high volume repetitive processes. And this was kind of before the wave of AI and agents, and so frankly, timing was a good factor on our side. We never really pivoted in a major way. When I think back to how we've done this is we really micro pivoted somewhat all the time. So we had this idea that we wanted to automate high volume repetitive processes. We had done it in one business. And basically with 3 weeks of our time, we had taken a team of 8 people that were running these processes every day and repurposed them to completely different work. And we said, wow, the impact of that is pretty impactful, and so we're going to start this as a business. And at that point, we worked with whoever would take us. We said, we wanted to automate your processes. What do you have? So we worked with a construction company, a healthcare startup, financial services, a legal firm, basically anybody who would work with us, until we worked with our first few insurance brokers. And the pain they felt around this problem of high volume repetitive processes, lack of data, it was a hair on fire problem. And so we, at each step of the way, have decided to not go broader, but to focus deeper and deeper into the problem space. So we started working solely with insurance brokers, we cut the corners, we stopped working with any previous customers, and we started automating all sorts of different workflows that exist within the insurance broker space. We did about a dozen of those, and then we started to see the patterns of from customer A to customer B, that they had similar processes that were pain points. And so we had our same hypothesis of we want to focus in deeper until we're the only people doing this. And we focused in on a few specific processes. and specifically around what an insurance broker's renewal workflow is. So that's when your home or your auto insurance is renewing, the process a broker takes internally. And that led us to where we are today, which is essentially a platform that will deploy bots or AI agents into a broker's workflow or into a broker's system and analyze their policy, understand what's happening with it, quote it with their other markets, and coming soon, be able to communicate that directly to their end clients, everybody in this room. And so essentially at each step, we have said we are going to focus in deeper on this specific problem, become domain experts, and with all of that knowledge we gain, become essentially the best people in the world at this thing that we do. So Quandri is a Vancouver-based startup. We raised our Series A last spring. We're about 55 people right now, and we'll be looking to raise our Series B next year. So instead of necessarily talking about Quandri too much, I've just laid out a couple of questions here that I thought would be valuable to people in the audience that are interested in startups, companies, etc. So the first is about knowing you're ready to start a business and how I knew I was ready to start a business. And I thought this was interesting because I don't have any experience prior to Quandri. And so really the question of how did I know I was ready to start Quandri was that it really came down to the fact that I am a very firm believer in the fact that the best way to learn something is to dive headfirst into it and do it yourself. And so I knew while I was in school that at some point in my life I wanted to start a business. That's what I wanted to do. But I was also pretty confident that I wasn't going to learn how to do that by going and working at any other job or doing anything else besides diving in headfirst and starting it. And so for anybody who's kind of on the fence or thinks they need to get this certain piece of experience before doing it, I think that's true in certain situations, but you start a business and you are just bombarded with an absolute overflow of questions you've never thought of that you don't have the answer to. And really the best way to start and the best way to learn is to just do it yourself and dive in. And so that's really what how I knew I was ready. When it came to how do we know what to build? I think a lot of people, the kind of classic startup advice is to find a problem within your own life or a problem that you or your friends have and start solving that. And so solve it for a small group of close-knit people that really love your solution. We came at this from a different perspective because we started working in an industry that we knew absolutely nothing about. We didn't know anything about insurance. We didn't know how brokers worked, how carriers, how all of the data flowed through the system. And so what we were forced to do was we were forced to go and talk to customers and figured out what their biggest problems were. We couldn't sit down and say the ideal way for a broker system is for an AI-powered platform that handles renewals because we didn't know anything about it. And so what it forced us to do was to go and spend very serious time with customers, go into their offices, understand how they work, and basically say, we're going to sit here, we're going to learn what your problems are, and we're going to solve those problems for you. And so that was really how we learned what Quandri was going to become. We did not start with a grand vision of this is where the business is going to go at this time. We said we're going to start with a kind of micro vision of we know this problem exists and we're going to solve it. And that in some way is going to give us the right to focus on the next year or the year after that. And so at every kind of step of the way, we've sat down, spoken to customers, understood what their problems are, and solved those and pivoted along the way. What has been the hardest thing on my journey so far? It was echoed, on the previous conversations that were happening. I think when I look back on the journey of Quandri so far, it's been about 4 years. And there's no one real thing that I think stands out as the hardest. I mean, there's a lot of talk about fundraising, and it'd be good to talk about that a little bit because it is really hard. But there's no one thing that really stands out as this being the most difficult thing that Quandri has gone through. because frankly, there's a lot of really challenging things. And I think the most challenging thing so far and kind of every day is that I don't frankly know how anybody could start a business without being an optimist. Because you come into work every day and there is a slew of problems, and your job is to figure out how to solve those problems, right? And by solving those problems, you really earn the right to come in the next day and focus on the next set of problems that are a little bit bigger and have more impact if they go right and if they go wrong. So I think really like one of the lessons I've learned and one of the most difficult things is that it's never easy, and really your job is to be presented with a set of challenges every day, understand which ones to focus on and how to solve them. And it's never going to, like, there's exciting things that happen, but overwhelmingly what you're doing is understanding problems, digging out the problems, and figuring out how to solve them. And so it's really the compounding effect of problem upon problem that is the most difficult part of starting a business. And the lesson of grit and resilience, I think reigns pretty true. So the last one here, and I came in here, I was told these presentations were supposed to be 5 minutes, and so the last ones are quite a bit longer, but I've only got, this is my last question. But is, what advice do I wish I had been given prior to launching? The advice I would ask for, I would give myself is get comfortable making decisions with less information and more uncertainty. I think for a lot of people, I think potentially technical people more so, is that you want to make decisions that are correct, don't want to make incorrect decisions, and feel that you can sit down, understand basically all of the variables that exist within a problem set and solve it correctly. But the thing that I continue to learn time and time again is that what the most valuable point and part of a startup is the fact that you're small. You're going to be going into major industries, right? We work in insurance, go into payments, go into identity with Google. You're going into massive industries. And the businesses that exist in those industries are large incumbents, and they have better people, they've got more money, they've got basically everything you don't, except the ability to start with a small market, to start with a small group of people that can iterate really quickly. And so the most valuable thing I've learned time and time again is be okay, one, making the wrong decision, because just making a decision moving forward is how you gain more information, it's how you learn, and it's through learning and iterating that you're actually going to come out to be the optimal solution. Right? I said kind of at the beginning that Quandri was not this grand vision of what we're going to become in 4 years' time, but we kind of at every point have been looking for a local maxima of what is the next best stage we could be at. And we iterate, get there as quickly as we possibly can, learn information at that stage, and then figure out what the next stage for us is. And so it's really getting comfortable without having that much information and being at a 51% that you're going to make the right information or make the right decision and make it, because you'll learn more either way. So that is basically all I've got. A few questions. I'll take questions. I can talk about fundraising, but I kept it short and sweet as the last presentation.
Running long, I'll keep it to 3 questions. You'll say after, because I want to make sure we have time with Daniel. And you guys have time for beer after. So choose the 3 questions.
Cool. Yeah, let's go right up front. Yep.
Can you walk us a little bit more details in terms of going to the office and talking with brokers? I think this is just also like sitting with your customer, right? And learning there.
About like how we did that, why we did it, just what it looked like.
I'm going to sit near to you all day.
Yeah.
How exactly?
Yeah, basically the first broker we got introduced to was from our cousin's friend who knew a broker. And so we essentially said, hey, this is what we do. We solve problems with technology. What are your problems? And we were there to automate processes, and we said, yeah, just walk us through what your biggest pain points were. And we decided to, just go show up. We said, we're going to come into your office. We're going to learn as much as we possibly can. And we sat down next to somebody whose job was to download PDFs, understand what that PDF was, and rename it accordingly. And so he said, okay, great, that's our first product. It was kind of more like where we ended up with Quandri is it kind of started in more of like a services consultation model. If you're familiar with Palantir, besides the defense contract part of it, where we would just go into businesses, understand what their problems were, solve them in a very specific way, and then over time, we pulled out the generic pieces of that and built a product around it, and became a product company out of that. But at first, we were very focused on a single customer. Tell us what your problem is, and we'll solve it. You already asked a question, so I'm going to go over here.
How did you get trust with your first customer that you went in to automate an internal solution versus delivering a product that's a bit less of a risk for them to adopt?
Yeah, we didn't charge them that much. We basically, so we charge our first insurance broker. They had previously tried to solve this problem, and they had been charged, it was $60K annually to solve it, and it didn't work. We didn't know that initially. And so we came in, and our previously largest contract was $1,000, and we put it out at $6K. And we were pumped when they said yes. It was a big deal for us, right? 6 times our largest contract. And so basically like what it came down to is we put them in a position where they had to say yes. Is that we said we would solve this problem. If we don't, then it's no skin off your back. If you do, then it's great. You've got a product that works and it didn't cost you that much. And so it kind of took doing that a number of times to build up a Rolodex of customers that could pick up the phone and say, yeah, these guys, they're the real deal, they'll do it, until we could get to a point where we were charging contracts larger than 6K.
Thank you.
Was Navi there?
Probably one question I just want to what's it like having a sibling co-founder, and how do you make sure that doesn't destroy your business?
Yeah. It's obviously a question we get a lot, right? I think the interesting part, it kind of was, we didn't do this necessarily intentionally, but when Thomas was walking through the important pieces of a founder, life stage, that was actually the first time I'd heard that. But life stage rings quite well true. We're a few years apart. Values, we're kind of in some way built from the same stuff and grew up in the same way. And so our values are incredibly well aligned. I think like really what it comes down to is there are difficulties that exist for us that I don't think exist for normal founders, of the fact that we do have so much history together, right? The pro of that is that the trust that is there, I think is very, it's deep. Like I think both of us just trust each other to a degree that we don't trust other people, and know that when he says he's going to do something, I know he's going to do everything in his power to do that thing, and kind of vice versa. What you lose is you lose some of the brother part, right? And that I think the more of you that are together is very much so the co-founder part, and you lose part of that familial sense. We get it when we go home, and people from the office aren't around. It's still there, but I think really like the differentiator is the amount of trust we have in each other, which you need when you're building a business, as you know.
Can we get a round of applause?
Cool.